Guys, welcome back into a video, and today we are in episode 5 in the scary stuff, and it is 2:25 right now, so let's just get into it.
I was about 10 years old. There was a small wooden house next to our schoolyard. That house belonged to an old man named Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith stayed in the house with his old wife. His wife loved children, maybe because they didn't have any of their own. All the kids called her Trick or Treat Granny. Every year, during the night of Halloween, she used to give all the kids lots and lots of candies, more than any other person living in our area. Every Halloween night, my friends and I used to run to her house and get as much candy as we could. She was old, but always smiling. Every year at Halloween night, she used to sit on her house porch with buckets of candy and give them away to every passing child. The town loved her for spoiling little kids. Mr. Smith also smiled at us whenever we went there. Perhaps he liked watching Miss Smith being happy while seeing all these kids. A week before Halloween, I went to buy groceries with my mom. She told me to get her some apples from the fruit basket, which was on the left corner of the small local store. I went there and started taking apples into my trolley, just when I felt someone standing behind me. As I turned back, I saw it was
You are
Trick-or-Treat
too
Granny.
close.
She stood
Get
behind
back.
me, waiting her turn to get fruits. I always felt happy whenever I saw her, as she smelled like candy all the time. But this time,
She's too
I
close.
didn't feel that way.
Okay.
Granny's eyes were a bit puffy, surrounded by dark circles. She smiled at me, but her smile was full of pain. My mom
You're too
noticed this and
close.
came to talk to her. We came to know that she's not well these days. My mom waited till she finished her grocery shopping, and we gave her a lift home. When we reached her house, we saw Mr. Smith standing at the gate with a very angry face. Granny got out of the car and walked slowly towards him. We heard Mr. Smith yelling, "The doctors told you not to leave the house and take rest. Why don't you listen to me?" I overheard Granny replying, "Halloween is coming. I had to buy candy for the kids. I am all fine, don't worry." I felt grateful, thinking how much she loves us, that she went to buy candy for us, even in this bad health condition.
This is it. This is the mecca of...
Yeah.
After this incident, a few things started to become weird. Whenever we used to walk to school, we would notice Trick-or-Treat Granny sitting at our porch with her knitting wool and waving at us. But the next day, we didn't see her there. Not even
She
the day
probably
after tomorrow.
moved.
We came across Mr. Smith 3 or 4 times.
Never mind.
But he was always busy going somewhere. 2 days before Halloween, I went
Hospital.
to the playground
That's what
to
I'm
play
guessing.
with my
I have
friends.
never watched
On
this.
our way back, we took the road near
Hospital.
Granny's house, just to check to see if she was sitting on the porch or not.
She's at the
As
hospital.
we reached the house, we saw Mr. Smith rushing to the house with another man, who seemed like a doctor. We realized that Granny is still sick, and we all felt a bit sad for her. The Halloween fever took over our town, as every shop and hangouts started to get dressed in Halloween decoration. But just before 2 days of Halloween, we all came to know that Granny was being hospitalized for
That
serious
sucks.
heart trouble. Mr. Smith had to stay with her in the hospital. Every kid got really sad,
It's really-
realizing Halloween
It's sad. It's
would
not
not be the
scary.
same without her. But I prayed to God for her recovery and decided to visit her after she comes back. It was the day before Halloween. My mother took me to the store to buy my Halloween costume. I always wanted to dress as Superman, so my mom bought me the magical-looking blue and red Superman costume. As I came back home, me and my dad started to put up all the Halloween decorations.
Okay, it's only for
After
one
a
day.
tiring evening
You don't
of
have
work
to,
and
like...
excitement, I went to bed and fell asleep. At night, I had a very peculiar dream. I saw Trick-or-Treat Granny sitting at our house porch with
Flashing
candies
warning?
in her palm,
I'm guessing.
calling me, saying, "Come here, come on." She was smiling, but her eyes looked the same as that day on the grocery store. I woke up and realized it was morning time. The final day of Halloween came. Our long-distance relatives came to our house, hence, everyone was busy having a fun time. Being among all those people, I forgot about the dream. In the evening, My school friends came wearing their Halloween costumes. We were all looking funny. I got into my Superman costume and went out to collect candies with my friends. Every kid was busy collecting candies. My friends and I also went to the nearby houses and started collecting candies. The last house in our neighborhood was connected with our way to school. After collecting the candies from that house, my friends decided to head back home.
Okay,
I
you
needed to
head
pee
back
badly,
home.
as
That's
I
what you
remembered
need.
drinking 2 cans of orange juice before leaving the house. I told my friend to start walking and that I will catch up eventually. Now, you can all understand, peeing wearing a Superman costume was a tough job. I walked to the corner of the street and helped myself, which took me enough time. After finishing, when I looked up, I saw my friends were already gone. I lifted the candy bucket in my hand and decided to head home too. Just when I was about to turn, I noticed a flash of light coming from my right side. As the school road laid ahead on my right, I could see Granny's house in some distance. Being the only house near school, it wasn't that difficult to spot for
You
anyone.
continue going home, no.
What seemed strange to me was the house light was on. I knew there was no one in the house. Then how come the room lights are on? I was a brave kid, hence, I thought to check it out.
I'm not.
I was curious too. I walked towards the house, and as I reached the front door,
This is his last
I
day
heard
on
footsteps
Earth.
inside the house. I knocked on the door and said, "Anyone inside?" I thought it might be some stranger
And then
breaking
they say,
into their
go
house.
away, I'm eating a banana.
But the response I got shocked me. I heard Trick or Treat Granny's voice. She said in a mellow voice, "Come on. I am waiting for you with candies."
You
I was
see,
more than happy to know that she came back
I ate
all
too
well.
much trick-or-treat
I pushed
candy,
the door
and
open and entered the house. I have never been inside this house, so seeing it for the first time made me a bit shy. There was a couch on the dining in front of a TV set, and stairs were leading up to the second floor. I said in a loud voice, "Granny, where are you?"
Granny.
She muttered from upstairs, "Come up, kid. I am here." I walked up the stairs following her voice. As I kept walking, she kept talking. "I am waiting for so long, but no other kid came. Glad you came. I bought so many candies. Come and have it." As I reached upstairs, I
Well,
saw
I
a room
ate
at the end
too
of the hall.
much candy,
Pale
and
yellow
I
light
ate
was coming out from that room. I walked inside and
too
saw
many
Trick or
Cheetos.
Treat Granny laying on the bed, facing her back towards me. I could see that her body has become extremely lean, as if she has lost a huge amount of weight in just a few days. I guessed it was because of her sickness.
That looks like the deer me
She
and Tony
didn't turn
also
towards
got.
me. Instead, lifted her long, lean arm, grabbing a handful of candies. "Come to this side. I am not well. I can't move much," she said in a
No,
frail
I feel
voice.
bad.
I felt like her voice was coming from a long distance, though she was lying just in front of my eyes. She started to laugh at that voice, and I felt something was odd.
Just pick up the
A
candy and
feeling
go.
rushed down my spine that suddenly told me I shouldn't be here. I told her,
Really?
"You take a rest today. I will come back some other time. Also, it's late. I probably should go home now." I was just about to leave when I heard a huge thumping sound on the wooden floor,
That's when
as
you
if
run.
someone jumped on the ground from a higher place.
No.
I turned back, and my skin crawled. The blood in my veins clotted. I couldn't believe my eyes.
What?
Granny was sitting on the floor like a frog. Saliva was dripping out of her mouth. Her eyes were
You want candy from her? Really? You really want candy from her? From her? Are you kidding me? Hi. Oh my god.
blood red. She gave
I
me a
need
terrifying
this.
smile and said in a demonic voice, "Trick or treat," and started hopping towards me violently. I ran for my life. I even tripped on the stairs and hit my head. I was bleeding, but I didn't stop. I could hear the loud thuds of
my
feet
head.
jumping on the wooden floor as she chased me. As soon as I got out of the house, I
I will
slammed
never
the front door
return there.
behind me and ran away.
Oh, you're actually
I woke
Superman.
in the morning on my bed. My mom and dad got really worried as I didn't come home with my friends. They
Well,
came looking for me and found me on the way to our house. I was lying unconscious on the road. After waking up, it all felt like a nightmare. But when my mom asked me what happened, I told them everything. I saw the look on their face changing as I told them all the details. When I finished, my mom hugged me to her chest and started crying loudly. My dad didn't say a word and left the room quietly. My parents didn't give any reason behind this reaction until I grew up. I came to know that Trick-or-Treat Granny passed away on Halloween evening due to a heart attack. They heard from Mr. Smith that she was in a lot of pain when she died. Her tongue came out of her mouth with saliva dripping from it. Her eyes turned all red from the blood clotting under her pupils. I didn't talk for an hour after hearing this. I felt sorry for her, thinking how much pain she has to go through on her last days. But I will never be able to forget that horrible side of her. Till today, on Halloween night, I feel scared that she might come to visit me again.
go away.
Get paid
Go
just by
away,
listening to music
you.
with
No.
Kurt.
No, you go away. Ooh, story
Around
2.
March of 2014, I started talking to this girl on Tinder. She seemed cool and fun. After about a week of talking, she suggested we meet up in person. She invited me to this coffee shop, and I accepted.
How
However,
long is these?
the day of, she started
16
messaging me,
hours.
saying she had something
16
to tell
hours?
me.
16 hours? Right, it's 2 o'clock. This is gonna be the last story, and
Her pictures
then
on Tinder weren't
I
actually
am
of her,
going to bed.
and yes, she was a guy. He claimed that he really liked talking to me though, and begged me to still meet up with him. Naturally, I declined. I blocked his profile, and just continued on with my life.
So
About
he
week
was a
later,
guy with a
I
girl
started
profile.
talking to another girl.
No.
Once again, she seemed cool and fun, and we hit it off right away. She asked me if I spoke to other people on Tinder frequently.
You still try to
Rather
talk to
stupidly,
him,
I told
even
her
if he
about
was
my previous
pretending.
encounter with the man lady. Weeks later, I would
No.
realize that this new girl was the same girl as the week before. She asked me if I wanted to meet up, and I said sure, as long as it was in a public place. We decided
That's
on a
smart.
cafe, and the next day I sat at the table waiting. 5, then 10, then 15 minutes had passed, and she was nowhere to be found. I then peered out of the window and saw, from across the street, a man staring at me intently. I looked away, waited a few seconds,
He's gone.
and looked back, but he was still just standing there, staring.
That's the guy probably on the
I
app.
left the cafe, got on my bike, and booked it home. I was definitely a little
Don't
freaked
drive
out.
home, because he could
I
follow
tried
you.
to pull myself together and reason that no one could have followed me. Then I deleted my Tinder profile. Things were normal for a few weeks. About 3 weeks later, I started getting these phone calls. The numbers always showed up as unknown.
Well, what you
I picked
gotta
up the
do...
first few times to some guy breathing heavily into the phone. I was already a little freaked out. After about a day, I stopped picking up any call as it displayed the caller's
Good.
name. Then, I started receiving texts. At
Break the
first,
phone.
they were all pretty harmless. Calls for attention, begging me to meet them in person. Then, it changed to very sexual texts, until eventually the messages became threatening, and whoever was messaging me started throwing out my family and friends' names and their whereabouts, saying he or she would get them involved unless I answered. Because they were texting me, I could see a displayed number, but when I called phone providers numbers. They told me the number couldn't be traced, and that it was likely a track phone.
No.
I waited about 2 weeks, not responding to the text, thinking
You
I
waited
shouldn't
2
be
weeks.
told. But eventually,
Okay. Can we
I
skip
started
to
getting upwards
another
of 50
one?
texts and phone calls a day. I would wake up to 10 or 20 texts every morning.
10 to 20?
I then decided just to change my number altogether. The texting and calls stopped for a while, but sure enough, it started happening again. I called my phone provider.
You know what?
Asking if they ever gave out numbers that a user could text.
Grab
They said the
a
policy
hammer
stated that they wouldn't
on the phone and
unless a
then you're
valid
good.
identification was provided. Then one day, I tried logging onto my Facebook, but was somehow denied. Within a day, friends started contacting me, asking me what the hell I was doing, saying that they were getting terrible messages from my account. In particular, one of my girlfriends was receiving messages about her mom who had died years ago. I apologized profusely and told people what was going on. I contacted Facebook and explained the situation, and they helped me access my account again, at which point I had it deactivated for a while. Enough was enough at this point. I decided to contact the FBI, explaining what had been going on for over a month now. They documented everything, but told me that since I or any of my friends and relatives were in no immediate danger, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything at all. At this point, I felt stuck. I thought about hiring a private investigator or a hacker. I decided against it, however, and just hoped it would fade out if I never answered. I left my Facebook deactivated and continued to ignore any texts and phone calls I received. I never had any trouble at home, but some of my closest friends received the occasional text as well, which freaked us all out. I hated that they got dragged into it too. One day, I came home, and things felt very eerie.
The door is
Locked,
open.
windows open, and no one home. A strong breeze running through the apartment.
I keep on
I
hearing
did a
stuff.
check of the place and found nothing else weird, so I locked everything up and just waited for my roommates to get home. It's been almost 7 months now. The calls and texts have more or less stopped. I'll get an occasional text, but at most one every 2 weeks. At the peak of it, I was receiving almost 100 texts a day. It definitely affected my social and personal life. I became much more weary of the people around me and of my surroundings. I just felt like I couldn't really focus on anything until this all stopped. Work was difficult, though I tried to maintain my composure as best I could.
When did it stop?
Everything was just weird. Life was weird. I've since stopped using all forms of dating apps and websites. Things are getting back to normal at this point, and I just want to put it all behind me. I'm moving at the end of this year, so it'll be nice to have a fresh start in a new place. I'm not going to sit here and say that all dating apps are dangerous and that no one should use them, but definitely cover your bases. Ask more questions before meeting someone. FaceTime them first. Skype. Anything. I was naive about it, and I regret it. Be safe, stick close to your friends, and try to sometimes meet people in more traditional ways.
Oh shoot, I guess
I
we'll...
started a tech job with an IP DT1 long distance company. The company is no longer around, and honestly, I
Wasn't
don't
that
know
an
how they
FBI
stayed in
building?
business as long as they
That was an
did.
FBI building.
It was really a pyramid scam, but thankfully I was on the IT side of things, so I didn't have to sell anything. It was a small,
In the
typical
last
tech
video.
support call center. The customers would call in, or Verizon, Quest, etc. would call in and say DT1 lines were down or outages. I was the only female on my team, having to prove myself and show that I can do anything my male counterparts could. It didn't take long, and the customers respected me for being able to handle things. After making my mark, I decided to take the 10-hour night shifts. I worked Wednesday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m., an hour lunch, and after 6 p.m., I was completely alone in the whole building.
They just need one person.
The rush to get out of the office by 6 p.m. was insane. I couldn't blame them, but I decided having 3 days off was better than 2. Like I said, I was by myself for most of the night. I would have to keep an eye on emails and make sure I answered calls. It was a very slow shift. I would get a lot of video game, reading, schoolwork, and writing done during this time. But sometimes, I would just wander the building, walk around just to get away from my desk for a time. I would have the VoIP phone system connected to my cell phone so no calls would be missed. This allowed me to go get a soda, go get food, and so on. One time while I was up away from my desk, I was going down to the lunchroom to grab a soda. The vending machine was on the basement floor. The basement had a wall of windows and one set of security doors. Same for the main entrance, only there was one camera facing that door. But nothing else to really make you feel very safe.
Why not 5?
I didn't like going to the basement much because the back of the building faced an acre of dark woods. There was a walking path to the woods, but for some reason they didn't install lights for the walking path. Never really sure why that was, but it didn't help the creepy factor. Sometimes I would see animals run past, but other times I felt like someone was watching me. I always tried my best to make it fast when getting a soda or snack, but sometimes it didn't feel fast enough. So, one night I was making my way down to the basement of the building to get a soda. It was a slow, dragging night, and I needed a little caffeine for a pick-me-up. I counted my money as I walked to make sure I had enough to get in and out quick. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw something dark from the glass door back into the darkness. I stopped dead in my tracks and tried to scan the forest, but like I said, it was just blackness.
Blackness? It's
I felt a bit
nighttime
of
and you
unease,
should
and
be
everything
asleep.
told me to turn my heels and go back to my desk.
Well, it's 2 o'clock.
But it was 9 p.m.,
It's almost
and
3.
I had a fair bit of time left on my shift before I could blow this popsicle stand. I tried shaking the feelings off and briskly walked over to the soda machine and made my selection. The soda dropped, and as I bent down to get it, I heard a loud ping noise.
Grabbing it, run,
It
run,
was
run.
as if someone had hit the glass with something. I stood straight up and felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I slowly turned
This
around
is how
and
you.
was scared to see someone out there.
This is how you not make
But
it in
as I
horror
made the full
films
turn,
or horror
I saw
or
once
real
again
life.
nothing but darkness. I thought this was a good time to book it back up to the main floor. I didn't bother with the elevator. I went to the stairs and ran up them. My heart was already racing from having to go down there in the first place, then the loud bang, and now running up 2 flights of stairs. Once I was back at my desk, I sunk down in my chair and tried to calm down. It was just one noise. I was in a building with locked doors
Just
and locked inner
one
offices. I
noise
kept
you
saying
say.
over and over again in my head that it was
He
nothing.
wants cheese, not
I was relieved
noises.
by that, but out of nowhere I got that feeling of someone watching me again. I peeked up over my cubicle wall and looked around my office. Nothing seemed out of place until I turned to face the front of the building. Outside the first set of doors was a slender, tall, dirty man. He was cupping his hands around his eyes to try and see past the reflecting of the lights inside. I dropped back down into my cubicle before he could catch sight of me. He didn't look like anyone I have ever seen at the office, and it was a little past 9 p.m. There was no good reason why he's checking out my office.
You know what?
As
If I get
sit in
fired,
my
I get
chair,
fired.
I hear the
I'm
doors
surviving
shake.
and I'm leaving.
I slowly stood up and watched him pull at the handles of the doors. They didn't budge, to my relief.
But as I watched him, he turned to face me. His face looked bruised or dirty. I couldn't tell which. Once his eyes locked onto mine, he started to bang harder and smack the glass.
Fine, come in. Come in.
I was so
No,
scared. It was the
don't.
middle of the night. I was by myself
I'll
and out
throw
in the
this
middle
at
of
you.
this office building complex. I grabbed my headset and dialed 911. While
That's what.
getting the operator on
You
the
should have
line,
done that
the guy
earlier.
was walking back and forth from one side of the glass doors to the next. 911, what's your emergency? The lady's voice was direct. Yes, my name is Samantha, and I work at Spectrum IT Services building. I need someone to come out. There's a guy trying to break into my office building. While speaking with her, the guy disappeared from view. I tried to look in all directions, but I didn't see him. I knew that he
I'm
wouldn't
just
just walk
freaked out
off.
now. If I look
Not
behind
how
me or
hard he was
over
banging.
there,
Out
all
of
I'm gonna
nowhere,
see is a
a
person
good-sized
looking at
rock
me.
came out of nowhere and smashed against the door. I screamed and went under my desk. The operator asked what just happened, and I explained that a rock smashed against the glass door.
Wow, you
She
didn't
asked
hear
if the glass
that?
was broken enough to let him in. I didn't want to stand up and look, but she told me to look in order to know where he was now. I crawled out from under my desk and just peeked over my wall and saw a huge crack down the first part of the door. I sank back down and told her to please have the police hurry. She said they were on their way. I've read many stories like this before, and people say that the cops couldn't get there fast enough. They
Yeah.
aren't kidding. It feels like time is standing still, and you can do nothing.
Nothing?
Another
Wow.
smash against the door, but along with that, the sound of glass breaking. Sirens could be heard coming towards my building.
You know, sometimes they shouldn't have sirens because then
I
that's gonna
told the
make
operator that the police
the
had
other
arrived and
guys
thanked her for all
run.
her support. I stood back up and looked over the
It's just
cubicle
my
wall,
opinion.
and the red-blue lights were
Cops
flashing
are nice.
wildly.
Cops are good, but they shouldn't have the sirens
But the
on
thing I didn't
because that
see
has
was the
enough
man.
time for the criminal
The top part
to
of the
get
door
out
was
of the
completely
building in
smashed,
time.
and the rock was laying on the inside of the entryway. One officer came to the front door, and others were out combing the area.
Y'all can
I
tell me
could
if
see
I'm
their
wrong in comments
flashlights
below.
moving all around the parking lot. The first officer to come in the building and greet me was a very kind man. He was patient with me and let me explain what I saw happen. Soon, my boss arrived and checked on me and then the damage. At some point, my husband was called and I told him I would be escorted home by one of the officers. I took the next few days off and started to look for another job that wasn't by myself at night. When I gave my statement, I explained to the officer that the person could be partnered with an ex-coworker who was fired a few weeks prior for stealing and just not showing up. He knew when people came and went. He knew where we kept the cell
Maybe
phones we were
it's
selling.
that guy.
Not under
That guy
lock and
right
key,
there.
but under a desk of the provisioner. From smartphones to Blackberries, when they were still worth buying, plus VoIP boxes and phone cards. I went on to leave this job a month later and started at a credit card machine company. It was
Oh,
not
you
just full
did.
of people, still a call center, but I felt safer, especially with the security and cameras all over the building. Like I said before, this company is no longer around. It was bought up by another company, and they basically liquidated all of the funds that were worth something. So, dirty man who tried to break into my office, let's never meet again.
You looking through your glass. Well, that's good. Bye, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Subscribe right now if you haven't already. Hopefully there's going to be a subscribe button right there. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.